Our next presentation is the Wuda Ogwa restoration of the Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation. With us today, all from BioWest, are Bob Thomas. We have Ellie Smith-Eskridge. We have Darren Olsen and Pat McGuire. We are going to save 5 minutes at the end for question and answer. But with that, Bob, take it away.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be presenting the Wuda Ogwa restoration by the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. The term Wuda Ogwa is a literal translation from the Shoshone language, and it translates directly to Bear River. Our site, the Wuda Ogwa restoration, is the site of the Bear River Massacre, which took place in 1863. I think it's important to point out here that our project sponsor is the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation, and we at BioWest work as consulting scientists for the tribe. We also have several other consulting scientists here with us today, representatives from Hanson, Allen, and Luce Incorporated, and All Red Restoration are also consulting scientists on this project. Okay, thank you. So this slide is our project location. The Wuda Ogwa restoration site is located in the state of Idaho. It is approximately 60 miles north of the Great Salt Lake. It's on the north bank of the Bear River, and Battle Creek is one of our major tributaries running through the Wuda Ogwa restoration site. Today, we're going to be presenting as a group from BioWest the background and project objective, the existing conditions on the land, the restoration design, the progress of restoration, including revegetation activities. We also will be presenting on monitoring to manage Wuda Ogwa, and the elements of the monitoring include water quality, stream flow, sediment, fish, birds, and there are also other numerous aspects that I'm not bringing up that we're also studying on the site. Our last item will be the future outlook for the restoration effort. Our project objective is to restore the land, water, and wildlife of Wuda Ogwa that's culturally important to the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation and also ecologically important to the Bear River watershed. Our project approach is the ecological restoration, which incorporates native culture and natural science. In this slide, you'll see on the left side of the slide a commemoration brochure from the annual memorial event for the Bear River Massacre that occurs every January 29th. The Bear River Massacre itself occurred on January 29th, 1863. It was the largest massacre of Native Americans in the history of the Western United States by the U.S. Army. So Wuda Ogwa, our project, is taking place on the site of the Bear River Massacre. They're one and the same place. The picture in the center of this slide is of a gentleman named Mr. Frank Warner. He is a direct survivor of the Bear River Massacre. This picture was taken in 1918 on the spot near where Mr. Warner remembered that his mother was killed by the U.S. Army on January 29, 1863. So this is the same site we're working on. Some of the pictures that you'll see on the right side of the slide include native vegetation that is important to the tribe culturally. They would have used this historically. And these are just a couple of them. There's many, many species we'll talk about later. The sago lily was an important food source, and the golden currant was also an important food source. The picture in the lower right is a picture also from 1918 of the banks of Battle Creek. And so you can see that they've already been, from the time of the massacre to 1918, they've already been completely stripped of vegetation. There's no more woody riparian vegetation, and the site has been converted to modern agricultural uses. The first step in what we decided to do was a baseline vegetation inventory, which we did in August 2021. You'll see all the different types of vegetation communities that we mapped on site. Our main question is what is there now to inform our future restoration effort? We wanted to understand the existing conditions, which I said would inform our restoration plans. What we found was after 150 years of conversion to modern agricultural uses, the majority of the site was dominated by turf-forming grasses that were planted by the pioneers to increase their production of grazing lands and increase their production of cattle, essentially. So the Bear River floodplain, which the Wuda Ogwa site is located in, historically would have been covered in cottonwood and willow forests and shrublands, which have now been eliminated and replaced with grazing lands. In addition, there are lots of noxious weeds and non-native turf-forming grasses that dominate the entire site. One of the worst being the Russian olive that has become dominant on the site. So we've started efforts to remove that. So this slide discusses how we, just summarizes how we prepare and implement restoration design, which again started around 2021 and it's going through the present day. Currently, we're looking at what we are planting is 30 plus native species of trees and shrubs, 25 plus native species of grasses and forbs, which include lots of important pollinator species. To date, over the past 3 years, we have planted over 70,000 native plantings on the site, and we have seeded over 130 acres of the site. We have a lot of plans for the future. The years 2026 through 2028 are going to be extremely important for us. We're planning at least 115,000 additional native plantings and seeding over 220 additional acres. All the work is going to be done in conjunction with the Battle Creek restoration process, which will be mentioned a little bit later in the presentation. In addition, we're working very carefully and coordinating with maximum input from our project sponsor, the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation, to make sure everything we're doing fits within their within what they believe are the culturally important parts of the site. A huge amount of our work is being done in phased approaches, so annually, and a lot of it is dependent on the availability of funding. And so with that, I'm going to turn over the rest of the presentation or partial part of the presentation to Ellie.
So now we're going to talk about restoration of the floodplain of Lower Battle Creek. So here's a Photoshop illustration of the property of Wuda Ogwa. We're looking at the floodplain. Lower Battle Creek crosses through the property of Wuda Ogwa right here, kind of along the highway here, and it eventually drains into the Bear River. So currently, or before restoration activities, you can see here that basically the floodplain contains a lot of open pasture, non-native turf-forming grasses. And if we take a look at Lower Battle Creek a little closer, you can see that it's basically a channelized stream. The banks are eroded, and we've got a lot of sediment moving through the river, as you can see by that chocolate brown color in the stream. So many years from now, after restoration, we are planning to have lots of this area of the floodplain covered with native species of vegetation, like cottonwoods. You can see some cottonwoods here, thickets of willows, other species of riparian vegetation. And then we are also planning to redirect Lower Battle Creek so that will contain kind of meandering channels here, which will then drain into Bear River. And so by restoring the floodplain, we expect to slow the movement of water going through the property. We also expect to reduce erosion, improve water quality, aquatic life, and wildlife habitat. So as of 2023, the tribe and others have been doing a lot of planting and seeding activities to revegetate the property of Wuda Ogwa. As you can see here on the left are some photos of a crew drill seeding native species. This bottom center photo here, you can see that there's some plantings being grown out down at High Mountain Nursery in Heber in Utah. A lot of these plantings and some of them have been, their seed source has been collected locally, so from on site and also upstream of Bear River. But also there have been some seeds that have been collected regionally. If you look at the top center photo here, we have volunteers that are helping to plant trees and other native plants at Wuda Ogwa. And then here on the right are some photos of the plantings that are ready to be installed. So the photos should have some, they might be showing some species of willows, cottonwoods, currant, and then lots of other species, like 28 species or whatever that Bob was saying earlier, trees and shrubs. And then the tribe has also chosen to plant culturally important species, such as sago lily and pinyon pine, and they're choosing to plant these species for cultural and educational purposes. So restoration has been a massive collaborative effort among the community. So lots of organizations have been involved. So we have contractors, volunteers, tribal leaders, tribal members, Utah Conservation Corps, nonprofit groups, industry such as Rio Tinto, students. So it's really great that so many folks have been involved. I know the tribe has really appreciated everybody's help. In particular, if you take a look at the photo here of the dead tree, Utah Conservation Corps has been instrumental in removing invasive Russian olive trees. I believe they have removed Russian olive trees on at least 50 acres of the property, which is really excellent. And then we also have had volunteers help the tribe plant every fall in November. Just the past 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the tribe hosted their big planting effort. There were about 800 volunteers that came out over the span of 2 days, which is really great. There's also been a lot of volunteers who have been involved in weeding at Wuda Ogwa every month between April and August. My coworker and the tribe have also produced a weed identification guide that we've given to the volunteers so that they know which weeds to remove, which has been excellent. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Darren, who's going to talk a little bit more about restoration design.
We'll start by showing the plan view of Lower Battle Creek. This is Hot Springs Road, and from Hot Springs Road to Bear River is about a mile. Right now, the stream is in this straight ditch, and before it comes into the Bear River, we plan to realign. Starting construction. It was supposed to start October 22nd, but with the government shutdown and the furlough, it's been delayed, and it will either be done this winter and or next summer. But that's the construction schedule. But currently, the new culverts are being put in and the diversion structure built at Hot Springs Road that will take initially some and eventually most, if not all, of the water through the restored channel. We'll still have the existing Battle Creek channel. There'll be some water going that direction, and we'll try to enhance the habitat. But most of it will be dedicated to coming and re-wetting this floodplain. We'll have oxbow wetland features. The ground has pretty much been laser leveled historically to benefit agricultural practices, and we're going to get some natural contours back in it. And we've actually last year constructed a pond. It's isolated right now, but the main part of the Battle Creek will flow through that pond before coming to the Bear River, and there'll be fishing and trails for access. I'm going to talk about some of the monitoring that's going on. I'm going to focus on water quality, stream flow, sediment, and touch on the fish monitoring. And Pat will talk about birds. We'll also have weather station for monitoring microclimate and vegetation monitoring, and really that's revegetation monitoring to try to have it as the planting and seeding as accessible as possible, adaptively managing for that. And we've just initiated long-term aquatic macroinvertebrate sampling to go along with our fisheries and water quality. To show where the monitoring sites are located, BC2 at the top of this photo is upstream of the restoration area. BC1 would be downstream before the confluence, so we have an upstream downstream in Battle Creek. And that BC1A right here doesn't exist yet as far as the water isn't flowing that direction yet. We have a weather station set up there, but it doesn't have flow until the construction is completed. So we'll have both on the downstream and the existing location and the new location. And we also have in the Bear River upstream water's flowing from right to left here. And at the Highway 91 bridge, a monitoring station, and downstream a couple miles at Highway 36 bridge, a downstream water quality monitoring station. And we have pressure transducers, permanent continuous data collection, hydrolab multi-parameter, and these weather stations going continuously, and it's available online real time. Just to show you a few graphs and results, the top left graph shows in blue the stream flow, and in that red color the water temperature. And as you can see, this is where 20 degrees C, which is the state standard for cold water fishery, but a couple months out of the year it gets and stays above that state standard. And the turbidity data on the right side, bottom right, in tan, the state standard is 50 NTU, and you can see that it's almost always over 50 NTU, and sometimes gets in over 1,000 NTU, which is extremely turbid. The top left graph shows the data for nutrients and total suspended solids. The yellow dots are TSS. The little green squares are total phosphorus, and some very extremely high numbers. The state standards are essentially always exceeded. It's very polluted. And if you look during the high flow, this is a picture taken in 2023, you can see how much this chocolate water comes and pollutes the Bear River. Annual loads are estimated right now from the 2023 runoff year was almost 32,000 tons of sediment, almost 20,000 tons of phosphorus, and over 30 tons of nitrogen discharged to Bear River. So it's one of the bigger polluters in the system. We are measuring bed load transport on this real, mud bottom stream. It still has gravel in transport. The problem is, and because of the stream's been straightened and it doesn't have the pull riffle sequence to it, transport remains active even during base flows. And so that causes the bed to grade and degrade seasonally, which is hard to keep our rating curves for stream flow monitoring. And it's definitely not good for aquatic life, both the bugs in the channel and the fish. And we expect that to change once the straightened condition is fixed. Just to mention the native fishes that are persisting in Battle Creek in this very degraded environment, we're happy to say that the whole middle portion of Battle Creek is dominated in native species of fish, and most of the non-native fish like carp and bass are down by Bear River on the lower part or up high by Treasurton. But in the middle section, most of it's dominated by speckled dace, mountain sucker, Utah chub, and longnose dace. So it's really encouraging result. And I'll turn the remainder of the time over to Pat.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about birds, and I'm going to go quick because I want to leave time for questions for y'all, so bear with me. So I just wanted to talk real quickly about why we're choosing to monitor birds. Birds are an important indicator of our environment, and because birds respond to environmental change, we want to see how our restoration goals respond with the birds. You heard from Bob about the current conditions on the site, so basically I'm just going to reiterate that the goals are to increase the wetlands on the site and more native vegetation and riparian habitat. So that's why we chose to monitor birds, but then how are we going to monitor birds? Birds have a lot of different ways of using their habitat, and because of that, we have to use 3 different protocols. So our 3 protocols are point counts. This is like a form of distance sampling where we go to a point, we do 5 minutes at each point where we write down any observations seen or heard of every bird, and each observation has a distance attached to it. And we can use that to monitor density, calculate relative abundance, species richness, and species diversity. We have area searches, which are more like a census kind of survey where you just you have 16 polygons there that are spread throughout the whole project, and you just kind of walk through the polygon for 20 minutes and write down everything you see or hear. We also know what habitat the birds are using when we're going through there. That helps us calculate encounter rate, habitat usage, and gives us some additional species richness data. Finally, we have our secretive marsh bird surveys, one of my favorites. We have 5 targeted species. So we have the American bittern, the American coot, the pied-billed grebe, the sora, and the Virginia rail. They're all secretive marsh birds. It's really hard to see them. They're very elusive. So what we do is we play their call through a Bluetooth speaker, and if they respond, then we know that the birds are using the site. We conduct each one of these surveys 3 times per season for every season of the year. So we have spring migration, our summer breeding season, fall, and then also as winter as well. We'll go through our preliminary results real quick. Wuda Ogwa has a large number of individual birds, but it's important to keep in mind that this is still baseline data because our restoration is still just barely starting to kick off. So we've done these surveys for 3 years. Our average is about 18 to 30 birds at each of our point count locations. And we're getting about 60 total species throughout the year. Our 3-year combined total is 80 species, and this is just the summer data that's shown here. Fun little anecdotes that I have, the Wilson's phalarope up there in the top right, we saw some of those this year around the new pond that Darren described. We are assuming they bred, but we can't confirm it. But Wuda Ogwa is near the southern tip of the breeding range for those birds. And then we also saw bobolinks. Bobolinks have had a 63% decline in population over the last 60 years in North America. We saw a successful breed of bobolinks at Wuda Ogwa this year. Very excited about it. This is just some diversity indices that we calculated. There's 2 different kinds that we use. Each one is dependent on, one favors dominant species, the other favors rare species. Both of these are considered high at the moment. So we expect to see those stay high or even increase further. We have two successful observations of our secretive marsh birds, just the soras and the Virginia rails. About 1 sora for every 2 to 3 acres of wetland on the site, and 1 Virginia rail per acre of wetland on Wuda Ogwa. We have seen Virginia rails wintering on the site as well. And then just in the future, the tribe plans to build, an interpretive center, an amphitheater, museum, and property along the extensive visitor trail system that they're going to build throughout the site. They're going to work with adjacent landowners along the upstream reaches of Battle Creek to improve water quality and riparian habitat. There will be planting efforts for at least the next 3 years, and plans are underway for the restoration of the Bear River banks, also owned by the tribe, and there's going to be continued long-term monitoring of the land. We just want to thank, first of all, the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation for trusting us to do this work, and also the work that they are doing for the land, and also any of the project partners and the volunteers that have showed up for the planting days. If you're interested in either donating or volunteering your time, you can follow that link there. Snag a picture of it real quick if you want. But yep, leave a couple minutes for questions. Thank you.
I'm not a stream restorationist, but I'm curious. Will the work that you guys do there, will the upgraded habitat system be able to just perpetually absorb all the sediment load from Battle Creek, like perpetually, or will it at some point begin to have like a negative impact on the work you've done?
No, we're planning for it. That's some of the reason that it's it's braided with multiple channels. It's a steeper upstream of Hot Springs Road, and it flattens out as it hits the Bear River floodplain. So we do expect a lot of sediment to drop out and are planning for it. And that having a wide floodplain that the river's able to move back and forth across is how we're planning for that. We expect beaver dams to start. We're going to put some in and put some wood in when we're constructing, but there's not a lot of trees or shrubs there yet, so we expect the beaver to come up from Bear River and down from upstream of Hot Springs Road to start building more beaver dams and deposit more and more sediment. This is a giant filter to help out with the sediment loads for Bear River.
Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our folks from BioWest.